Alrighty, so yesterday I did part 1 of MLS Matchweek number 29 review where I look at the first 6 games. Today I am going to be doing part 2 where I look at the last 6 games. And one thing that I start to realize in terms of this match week, and really for these past couple of match week, is that goal scoring have definitely started to drop. And that it's no surprise the fact that goal scoring is start to drop a little bit, considering the fact that a lot of teams tends to be more defensive, and that there's really not a lot of big margin in terms of some of these games, because a lot of these teams are trying to make sure that they get that crucial points or get that crucial free points that can help their cases of either making the playoffs or get them in a better position of going to the playoffs. But in terms of the last 6 games, and the first game that I'm going to be talking about is the Galaxy versus Montreal, where the Galaxy, of course, won 2-1 against the Impact. And this game was pretty much over before it even started, because as soon as I saw the Impact lineup and as soon as I realized the fact that they decided to basically not put their strongest starting 11 in this game, and that it seemed like they are pretty much just prioritized that Canadian Championship second leg that they have against TFC on Wednesday, that, yeah, I knew the Galaxy was going to win this game, and that this was truly the game where one team gets the free points of the week. Now, to be fair, the Galaxy definitely did not make themselves easy to get this 3 points. And, you know, they got off to a good start with a goal from Zlatan Ibrahimovic from a tuna to go up 1-0. But then 3 minutes coming out of the second half, it was Lassi Lapinainen that scores from Safir Taider, and all of a sudden the game is tied up at 1 apiece, and then you're just thinking, uh-oh, is this happening to the Galaxy again, where when they, of course, are playing against teams that they should be able to win, and that this is supposed to be a free points game for them, and yet they find themselves not able to do that. Now, thankfully, that did not happen, and, you know, 2 minutes later, Antuna was able to restore that lead from Zlatan and Pavone to give the Galaxy a 2-1 lead, and then they had a bunch of opportunity to put this game away, which unfortunately they didn't, but thankfully they still won this one 2-1, not in a very clean way, but when you look at the stat lines, they pretty much just dominate this one. They had 25 shots compared to 14 that Montreal has, 12 shots on goal compared to 3 that Montreal has, 7 shots off target for both of these teams, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that Montreal has, and possession-wise, 50% apiece. So for the Galaxy, you know, they took care of business and got the 3 points, and like I said, it wasn't a very vintage kind of Galaxy performance, but at the end of the day, you know, at this part of the season, it doesn't matter how pretty or how ugly you win a game. As long as you win a game, it's a crucial 3 points. And as for Montreal, this is why I said that I didn't really think that they were part of the playoff conversation, mainly because I'm pretty sure they're prioritizing the Canadian Championship, which I don't blame them, because I know that they will most likely have to sacrifice their playoff chances to potentially focus on the Canadian Championship. But if I was a team that either want to go to the playoffs or think about a game where you're potentially going to win a trophy and you're going to be going to the CONCACAF Champions League, then yeah, obviously I'm going to prioritize the game where I have a chance to get a trophy and have a chance to potentially go to the CONCACAF Champions League. So yeah, we'll see if Montreal is able to do that on Wednesday, and you would think that they better hope that they were able to do that, because they really put all their eggs in the basket, and their season really is kind of on the line coming into this game against TFC on Wednesday in the Canadian Championship, because if they do not win that game, or at least if they don't hold up that 1-0 aggregate score that they have from the first leg, then this would be a huge failure of a season for the Montreal Impact. But moving on into the next match is LAFC. So LAFC once again dropped points for the 5th game in a row, and I know that they are still by far way ahead of everybody else, and that, you know, eventually they're going to win the Supporter Shield. Like, it's not really if they win the Supporter Shield, but really win that they're going to win the Supporter Shield. We thought that they were going to win it a couple of weeks ago, but because they kind of gone into this little slump that they have, now they have to delay another week of potentially for them getting this supporter shield. But in this game, they drew 1-1 against TFC, and I'll tell you what, in the first half, TFC were definitely the better team, and that TFC, you know, a team that, as I said, they are a team that I don't think a lot of people realize that this team have not dropped all 3 points ever since August, and that, you know how they had that really bad run in the middle of the season? Yeah, it's all gone now, and that they look like a team that could maybe be a dark horse heading into the playoffs. But in the first half, 19 minutes into the game, it's Endo that scores from Altidore to give TFC a 1-0 lead. Then they had a couple of chances to get the second goal, but they couldn't quite do that. And that's when I kind of start to worry about TFC, with the fact that when you're playing against an inferior opponent and you're the underdog on the road, how many times we have seen this season where teams unable to get that second goal and unable to get a big advantage against an inferior team, that it can come back to haunt them. And as the game goes on, LAFC started to control the game, and it looked like the LAFC team, we know that they could potentially come back from this, but yet somehow in some way, they, despite the chances that they had in this game, the ball just could not fall into the back of the net for LAFC until the 95th minute, where Mavinga brought down Latif Blessing in the box. And originally this wasn't called a foul, but they go to VAR and they reverse the call, and it was the right call. I mean, Mavinga clearly high boot Blessing chest there, and that, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that that is 100% a penalty, which Vela was able to put that one away to now have 28 goals this season, or is it 28 or 29? I think it's 29 goals that he have scored this season, and he's only 3 shots away of breaking that mark that Jose Martinez sets last year for the most goal a player have ever scored in a single season. But yeah, that was the final score of this game. As the shots in this game, 17 shots compared to 8 that TFC had, 5 shots on goal compared to 1 that TFC had, 7 shots off target compared to 5 that TFC had, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that TFC had, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession. And in some way, I think for TFC, as much as I know they're going to be proud of this result with the way that they kind of gone toe-to-toe with LAFC, it kind of, in some way, summarized the fact that even they had this good run that they had in the last couple of weeks, it would have been much better if they don't just kind of have some lapse of concentration in the most vital part of the game, and that in this vital part of the game, it was late in the game, where if only they didn't commit that foul late in stoppage time, they would have become the second team this season to go to Banc of California Stadium and get all 3 points away from LAFC. And as for LAFC, you know, I mean, I guess you could say that maybe there is still started to be a little bit of doubt in terms of their chances of potentially reaching MLS Cup, and I think maybe a little bit of a doubt is kind of an understatement. I think there is kind of started to be a little bit concerned because, as I said, you know, I know every team, of course, is going to go into a season with a slump, but you know, LAFC is doing this slump right at the end of the year, and when you're heading into the playoffs, you know, you cannot afford to go into a slump like this and go cold into the playoffs, and that the longer this winless run goes, the more question I think you have to ask whether or not if LAFC potentially is going to actually reach MLS Cup, or is this going to be like a repeat of last year where they basically choke in the first round of the playoffs. Well, this year they won't choke in the first round of the playoff because they have the first round bye, but would they just completely fall onto their face out of the gate when they, of course, play that second round game? But moving on into the next match. Boy, this game, I have no idea how this game ended 0-0. And the reason why I have no idea how this game ended 0-0 is because there was 49 shots combined by both of these teams in this game. And yet, somehow, of those 49 shots that both of these teams took, none of them end up into the back of the net, which is the most ever in MLS history that two teams combined with that many shots, and none of them would go into the back of the net. And as much as I am just absolute applaud the fact that there was no goals that was scored in this game, I'm pretty sure a lot of Timbers fans are even more applaud the fact that they didn't score a goal. Like, what is going on with the Timbers right now in terms of goal scoring? Like, this is now 3 straight games that they have been shut out at home. And if I would have told you at the beginning of the season where the Timbers, for these last 6 games, where they're only able to win 2 of these 7 games, and that they get shut out the last 3 games and would go on a streak where they would be on a verge of potentially going 270 minutes plus without scoring a goal at Providence Park, I would think that you are absolutely crazy. But here we are. That's what is going on right now with the Timbers. And, you know, I will say this. Minnesota, they really defended very well in this game, and that I really like the fact that, you know, Aiko Opara once again had an amazing game, and also the rest of those guys in the back line like Metanier and Chase Gasper, all of those guys had an amazing game. And also not to mention Vitor Manone once again on his game, and he's arguably, in my opinion, one of the most underrated, or if not the most underrated goalkeeper right now in the league, and maybe should definitely get some nod in terms of goalkeeper of the year. And you know, I will give credit in terms of Minnesota doing a great job in terms of defending this Timbers attack, but I will also not give any credit the fact that this Timbers attack just once again looked completely toothless going forward, and that, you know, as much as I know a lot of people have been talking about one of the biggest problems for the Timbers this season is that they can't break down a low block team. Well, that's one of the problem. I think now the second problem that I'm started seeing with this Timbers team is they just cannot finish. Like, there is a lack of clinical finishing in this team. And, you know, you saw in this game where they had 29 shots in this game and 11 shots on goal. They absolutely pepper the Minnesota goal, and they basically forced Vitor Manone to stood on his heads in this game to keep a clean sheet. And yet, somehow, in some way, that of course is happened. And, you know, no disrespect to Vitor Manone, some of those saves that he made, I thought a goalkeeper clearly should make those saves. And that, you know, it just feel like the Timbers for these last couple of games, there's just nobody on this team that have any clinical finishing whatsoever. And I guess maybe the reason why that is the case is there's just no confidence whatsoever on this team. Like, nobody on that attack, guys like Ibobasi, Fernandez, Valeri, Sebastian Blanco, all these guys have no confidence whatsoever, and just feel like the goals is only like 2 inch wide right now. I mean, it is just absolutely a disaster for the Timbers right now. And to think that coming into this home stretch, and you would think that they are still find themselves below the red line and still are on the bubble of potentially making the playoffs, is absolutely shocking. And that if they do not figure this thing out in the last couple of games, and that if they don't, of course, maybe get a win against New England this Wednesday, I seriously have doubts in terms of the fact that the Timbers could make the playoffs. And if they do not make the playoffs, they have only themselves to blame, and only themselves to basically blame the fact that they couldn't win those home games where they have always tends to do in the previous year. But as for Minnesota, you know, this was definitely a good point for them. You know, I was really hoping that they were going to get all 3 points in this, and they probably could have got all 3 points if Kevin Molino, who somehow in some way he was one-on-one with Steve Clark late in the game, and yet he basically hits it straight to Steve Clark. Like, when I saw that, I was so frustrated, because that could have been the winner for Minnesota, and that would have been just a big smash and grab that Minnesota had against the Timbers on the road, and it would have really helped the Quakes' cause in terms of the Timbers dropping points, or dropping all 3 points in this game. But unfortunately that didn't happen. But still, they're in a very good position in terms of making the playoffs, and I believe if they do win their next game, which is against LAFC, they, of course, will be making the playoffs for the first time in their franchise history. And in terms of the shots in this game, as I mentioned, both teams combined with 49 shots. Portland had 29 shots compared to 20 that Minnesota has. 11 shots on goal compared to 4 that Minnesota has. 10 shots off target compared to 13 that Minnesota has. 8 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that Minnesota has. And possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Minnesota has. And for people that was wondering if 29 shot is kind of like the most shots that the Timbers this season have been able to put, that wasn't able to put one past the net net. I think that might be correct, although I remember earlier this season where they had a ton of shots in the game and that they also struggled in terms of scoring a goal, and that was against Vancouver. And I think maybe that was the game where they had a ton of shots and yet they still weren't able to put the ball into the back of the net. Like, it was unbelievable, the fact that I saw this game and how in the world did this game actually end in a 0-0 draw. I mean, of all the 0-0 draw that I've seen this season, this is one of the least likeliest 0-0 draw that could happen at the end of the game. Consider how many chances both teams had and how many chances that the Timbers had to at least get one goal in this game. But moving on into the next match is Dallas and NYCFC drawing 1-1 in this game, and I'm not quite sure if both teams is going to be happy with this result. I mean, for NYCFC, they of course dropped some points in this game, which means that they allow Atlanta gain some ground behind them to try to get first place in the Eastern Conference. Although the good news is, as I'm going to talk about in the next game, they at least did gain some ground on Philly, who of course lost to the Red Bulls after this one. And as for Dallas, you know, a draw in this game against NYCFC at home, you know, you would think that in games that is not like a playoff kind of game for Dallas, for them to try to reach to the playoffs might be a good resort. But because Dallas is kind of in a desperation mode to reach the playoffs and that they are playing at home, you know, these are kind of the points that you should not be dropping. And when you look at this game, they could have easily had 3 points in this game, but they did get off to a bad start. And in fact, NYCFC just 35 seconds into this game score from Castellanos, from Tinnerholm, and Morales to give them a 1-0 lead. But then after that, Dallas kind of really took control a little bit of the game. Well, actually, before that, for about 20-minute spell, there was chances for both teams to potentially score the next goal. But Dallas, after that, they really kind of had a lot of chances to potentially get the next goal, but they couldn't quite find that by the end of the first half. But as we head into the second half, once again, they had a lot of chance to potentially get the opening goal, but they eventually did find it in the second half, unlike in the first half. And in many ways, they kind of got gifted in terms of this goal, because while Andrasky scores this goal for Dallas to get them back on level turn, this was just an absolute shocking giveaway from Alex Rain, which I think that is something that is a very, very rare thing to see from him, considering the fact that he's one of the best defenders in this league. But the fact that he basically just gave the ball away in his own half and had twice to try to clear the ball away but couldn't quite do it after he gave the ball away, yeah, I mean, that was just absolutely terrible from him. It was just shocking defending from NYCFC, and it was just an absolute gift for Andrasky, who basically just kind of took that ball away and basically strike it toward net to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And then Dallas late in the game, and this moment, you know, if Dallas does not make the playoffs, and if they do not make the playoffs by maybe 1 or 2 points heading into after decision day, this could be the moment that they are going to look back and is going to haunt them not able to make the playoffs, because Ryan Hollinshead was literally in front of the near post, and as the ball was coming into the box, he was literally 3 yards out, and all he had to do is basically tap that ball into the back of the net, and yet somehow, in some way, he did a Lucas Milano and basically just missed that. I mean, that is just as sure as a goal as you're going to get, and I'm not really going to just kind of blame Hollinshead as the reason why they didn't win this, and I'm not really gonna just criticize him a lot, because Hollinshead has been by far one of the best player and one of the more kind of versatile defender that actually score goals and actually contribute to the team goal scoring that we have seen from any other team in the league right now. But seriously, that should have clearly been put into the back of the net, and if that was in the back of the net, this would have been a 2-1 4-1 win for Dallas, and that this would have been all 3 points for them. And considering the fact that now, even though they're back above the red line and are in 6th place right now, they play one more game than what San Jose and Portland has played. And if San Jose and Portland is able to take advantage of their game in hand on Wednesday, then Dallas will once again find themselves back below the red line. So, yeah, these are definitely, you know, sometimes you have these kind of small moments that could really be defining in terms of the playoff picture. And, you know, when you do not able to capitalize on these playoff defining moments, then it could really come back to haunt you at the end of the season. But overall, you know, in terms of shots in this game, 20 shots compared to 13 that NYCFC had, 5 shots on goal compared to 4 that NYCFC had, 9 shots off target compared to 4 that NYCFC had, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 5 that NYCFC had, and possession-wise, 47% possession compared to 53% possession that NYCFC had. And, you know, NYCFC, I believe they have a 4-point gap on Philly right now, and a 5-point gap on, or actually no, I think Atlanta might be in 2nd place right now, because with Atlanta winning this weekend, they might have overtook Philly in terms of that 2nd spot in the Eastern Conference. But either way, this next game between NYCFC versus Atlanta, that's going to be happening on Wednesday, is definitely going to be a must-watch game, and you would definitely think that could be a game that might decide who exactly is going to get that top spot in the Eastern Conference, and who exactly is going to get the crucial first round bye in the Eastern Conference. Speaking of Philly, so they lost 2-0 to the Red Bulls, and this was definitely not a good loss. And this loss not only hurts them in terms of their chances of getting that top spot, but the fact that they also suffer a couple of key injuries in this game that could really damage their chances once they get into the playoffs. But, you know, the Red Bulls, of course, won 2-0 into this game, and they got the goal scoring start 32 minutes into this game when Tom Barlow was able to give them the lead. But in many ways, this was an absolute howler from Andre Blake, because when the ball was coming into the box, all he needed to do is basically just kind of held on to that ball once the ball was crossing into the box. I mean, it wasn't even hit with a lot of power with that low cross, and yet somehow he basically fumbled that, and there was Barlow right there to capitalize it there and give the Red Bulls a 1-0 lead. I mean, it is very rare you see Andre Blake make that kind of mistake, but I'm pretty sure that he is definitely going to be very annoyed about that, considering the fact that he just did a goalkeeping howler in probably one of the worst time you would want to do a goalkeeping howler in these kind of playoff defining kind of matchup. Now, in the second half, both teams had chances late in the game to potentially get the next goal. The Red Bulls had a couple of chances to close this game out. The Union had a couple of chances to equalize in this game, but ultimately it was the Red Bulls that was going to close this game and found that second goal to pretty much put this game set and match. And this goal was kind of a little bit of a repeat of what happened on Wednesday between the Red Bulls against the Timbers, where they basically hit on the counter-attack, and Royer was able to score at the end of that counter-attack from Bradley Wright Phillips and Kaku. And yeah, that is the final score of this game. And in terms of the shots in this game, 17 shots compared to 8 that the Union had, 7 shots on goal compared to 3 that the Union had, 5 shots off target compared to 4 that Philly has, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 60% possession compared to 40% possession that the Red Bulls had. And for the Red Bulls, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was questioning the fact that whether or not if they are actually going to make the playoffs, consider they were getting at that point of the area where teams behind them could maybe even overtake them if they continue this bad run. But credit to the Red Bulls, the fact that they turned it around in these last 2 games, and if they of course can continue this kind of run, they could definitely be another team that could be a huge threat. And I would say hands down they could be a threat to any teams in the playoffs if they can play like that, because we know the Red Bulls are one of the most experienced team in the playoffs, and that, you know, they can of course do that in this game against the Union. Watch out, this Red Bulls team can easily go deep and make a deep playoff run just like they did last year. And as for the Union, this is the thing that concerned me about this team heading into the playoffs, because no doubt that I think this team is going to get home field advantage, but here's the thing. I feel like the Union this season, there's been times where they play like some of the best soccer that I have seen in the league, and they have been by far, hands down, the best team in the league. And then they have times where they just look like that, which is very flat and very kind of not really mesmerizing, and that now they of course have to go on the road to the San Jose Earthquakes. And by the way, that matchup is gonna be a very interesting kind of game, and I mean, as a Quakes fan, I'm hoping that should be 3 points, and hopefully with the Union of course getting that bad loss against the Red Bulls, and also have a couple of guys on their starting 11 going to be missing because of injury, it's going to give us a little bit of an advantage. But these next couple of games is going to be interesting for the Union, because if the Union is going to continue to prove a team where they could be hot at times and could be cold at times, that is not going to get it done in terms of reaching MLS Cup. Like this year with single elimination, if you go cold in a game, you are done in terms of the playoffs, and that you just cannot afford to have a bad game because there is no second leg in this year's playoff format. But now moving on into the last game of this week, talk about another team that is on a red hot form, and a team that could also be a dark horse heading into the playoffs and maybe make a deep run, is DC United. So remember a couple of weeks ago I talked about how DC, even if they make the playoffs, I still have doubt whether or not if they can make a deep run, because they just look like a team that is just completely lost, and that I just don't know if they are going to, like, with the way that how inconsistent the attack has been and that the defense can be suspect at times. I just don't know if this DC team is going to make a deep run. Well, in these last 3 games and in this win against Seattle, there is no doubt that they are a team that could be capable of making that deep run. And that attack that has been struggling so much this season, well, they are finally able to be clicking at the vital point. Now, in the first half, both teams hit the post early. Brad Smith could have given Seattle an early lead. And this game was kind of relatively even for majority part of this match, where Brad Smith could have given Seattle a 1-0 lead after he hits the post, and then Wayne Rooney himself hits the post just 6 minutes later. That could have given DC United the early 1-0 lead. But 2 minutes after Wayne Rooney hits the post, DC eventually did get that 1-0 lead when Lucas Rodriguez was able to strike a nice low driven shot from outside the box to give DC a 1-0 lead at that point. But after that, again, it was really kind of even, and both teams had chances to score a couple of goals, and that we could have easily been at 3-2 at halftime with the way that both teams had a lot of chances to put the ball into the back of the net. Now, in the second half, Briant scores from Wayne Rooney to give DC a 2-0 lead, and then after that, Seattle really kind of started to dominate the game. But I guess the reason why they kind of started to dominate the game and had most of the chances is because DC started to put a low block on the Sounders, and that they was just kind of trying to soak in the pressure to get this crucial 2-0 win, which they were successfully able to do that, as in the end Seattle couldn't quite get a goal to make this game interesting, and that in the end, DC get a massive 3 points at home against the Sounders. In terms of the shots in this game, 13 shots or 12 shots compared to 17 that Seattle has. Both teams had 4 shots on goal, 5 shots off target compared to 8 that the Sounders had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 5 that the Sounders had. And possession-wise, 50% for both of these teams. And that, again, this is now 3 straight wins for DC. And that, what a time it is for now to finally turn it on and finally have a good form as the playoffs is about to begin. Because after all, the success of having a deep playoff run with this new format is that as long as if you get hot late in the season and you're heading into the playoffs in a very good form, then you are definitely going to be picking off those teams that are potentially going on a cold form heading into the playoffs, and you're able to capitalize and win those games to move on into the next round. And as for the Sounders, you know, boy, they really missed Nicholas Lodeiro in this game. Did I mention the fact that Lodeiro did not play in this game, and that it seemed like now it's not just the fact that the Sounders, they can't win without their star-studded attacking piece on their starting 11, but it's now they cannot win if they do not have at least all of their star-studded attack heading into the playoffs. And that's what makes me very concerned about this team. It makes me wonder, you know, I don't know if they can actually make a deep run, considering the fact that if doing the end of the season, or doing now to the end of the season and to the playoffs when it starts to happen, if they do start to suffer some injury in terms of that star-studded starting 11, then I definitely have a huge concern of the fact that the Sounders can make a deep run, because it's been proven, as if this Sounder team does not have that star-studded starting 11 and they just put a bunch of reserve player in this team, yeah, this team is not very good, and in some way they're not even playoff level kind of team if they just put some of their backups in this team. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Tomorrow I will be doing the preview for the midweek games, and there's going to be 6 midweek games that is going to be happening. One of them, of course, I will be attending, which is the match between the San Jose Earthquakes versus the Union. And because that match is the last game of the midweek action, and it's actually a very late kickoff, it's an 8 p.m. kickoff, and that the game probably won't end until 10 o'clock, and I won't get back home probably until like around 11 or 12 a.m. Yeah, most likely I'm going to have to do the review for the midweek games on Thursday, and then I'll basically also have to do the preview, where I don't think I'm going to do the preview on Thursday because I know all the games for the weekends is going to be happening on Sunday, so I might end up either do it on a Friday or do it on a Saturday, because, you know, all the games is going to be happening on Sunday this weekend. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I, of course, will see you guys next time.